Right, so now we need to look into an essay 240. We finished the main part of the essay, and now we need to look into some content for the writing of the case studies. So first thing which you need to tell me is that is detection of frauds and errors the primary objective of the audit? No, it is the incidental and secondary objectives, but by no means an insignificant audit objective. So what am I talking about? Detection of frauds and errors. Yes, detection of frauds and errors. Is it the primary objective of the audit? Not the primary objective of audit. Not primary objective of audit, but it is the incidental and secondary, but by no means an insignificant audit objective. Then what is more difficult to detect, fraud or error? Yes, what is more difficult to detect? Yes, more difficult to detect, fraud or error? Yes, fraud or error? Fraud. Why? Because fraud may involve sophisticated and carefully organized schemes designed to conceal it, such as intentional misrepresentation, falsification, manipulation. And what is more difficult to detect, management fraud or employee fraud? Management fraud. Why? Because higher level of management involved. Employees' work will at least come under the review of the management. So what is more difficult to detect? Management fraud. Then one more very nice sentence they talk of over there. Okay, audit procedures which are effective in detecting an error may not be effective in detecting a fraud. Audit procedures which are effective in detecting an error may not be effective in detecting a fraud. Why? Because fraud involves sophisticated and carefully organized schemes designed to conceal it. The person who has done a fraud will obviously take steps to hide the fraud. Conceal the fraud like forgery, intentional misrepresentation, falsifications or so. Right, and in an audit we say, an unavoidable risk that some material misstatements may not be detected, even though if the audit has been planned and performed in accordance with the standards. An audit done by an auditor, reasonable assurance given by the auditor is no guarantee for fraud error detection. So that is one thing, regarding detection of frauds and errors. Is it the responsibility of the auditor? And you might also remember the Kingston Cotton Mills case ka verdict. As an auditor, he is a watchdog, but he is not a bloodhound. As an auditor, you are supposed to be cautious. You are not supposed to be suspicious. Just that watchdog and bloodhound I remembered. Yes?
Detection of fraud is not the responsibility of audit. I mean, if he comes by a situation which, due to which he gets to know that there might be a fraud existing, only then it becomes his responsibility.
See, directly what is said, detection of frauds and errors is not the objective of the audit. What is the objective of the audit? To express an opinion, to obtain reasonable assurance. But can the financial statements be considered to be true and fair if there are material frauds or errors in those financial statements? No. So though directly not said, but indirectly said only. No?
Yes, because again in the professional ethics they say, if the auditor is not he is not good,
competent, not performing his work with due care.
Yes, then he is guilty of professional misconduct.
Yes.
It is said that it is not his responsibility to detect.
But then it's like that, but still when you check, a auditor has not detected fraud, but that time it will be checked whether he performed his work with due care. And it is found that he has performed his work with due care. And then in spite of that, the fraud was so well concealed, so well planned that he could not detect. Then he will not be responsible. But like auditor did the audit, he didn't even check the cash book. Had he gone through the cash book once, he would have immediately come to know the fraud. Then though he will be guilty. No? That way. Okay. Right. So what did we say? Kingston Cotton Mills case, auditor is a watchdog, but he is not a bloodhound. So right, is he a bloodhound? No, he is a watchdog. You understand? He is a watchdog. What does this magnifying glass indicate in the hand of this dog? Alert, professional skepticism. That indicates professional skepticism, being alert. है ना, being alert. So as an auditor, he is supposed to be cautious and not supposed to be suspicious. Then auditor's responsibility, यानी कि as an auditor, what are the procedures which you need to perform? I am giving you content for your case studies answer. Pehle I told you detection of frauds and errors. Is it the primary objective of the audit? Then auditor's responsibilities, or what are the audit procedures which you need to perform for the same? Firstly, you need to check whether the financial statements are materially misstated due to fraud. And if they are, then you may also have to revise your audit risk ka assessment. है ना? So this simply talks about the risk assessment procedures of 240 IIAFRF. Right. Secondly, you need to check the impact of fraud on the financial statements and the auditor's report. Thirdly, when you come to know about any fraud in the organization, you will communicate to the management, to those charged with governance. And now 143.12, you'll also have to report it to CG if the fraud is 1 crore or above. And finally, that is last, fourthly, finally, you understand? Can you give me do you remember the first example which I had given you of RMM at financial statement level? Doubts regarding integrity of management. I think the CEO of the company has committed a fraud. You understand? I think this fellow CEO has done a fraud in the organization. Now, we have SA 580, which is on written representations. Don't write, first pay attention. We have SA 580 on written representations. You understand? From whom do we obtain representations? From the management, from the person who is well informed of the matter. So generally in an audit, if the company has a CEO, we would like to obtain the representation from the CEO of the company. But now 240 mein what we have assessed, or 315, 200 what we have assessed, that CEO has done a fraud. And now 580, what you are telling, take a representation from the CEO. You understand? So will you also not doubt the reliability of the written representations when there are doubts regarding integrity of management? So don't you think that the implication of fraud also comes on the reliability of written representations? Exactly, that's the final point. The impact of fraud will also come on the reliability of the written representations obtained from the management. Do you understand? SA 580. You understand? What does 580 say? Take a representation from the management. So say we thought we'll take it from the CEO. But 240, what we found out, the CEO has only done a fraud. So obviously we will doubt the reliability of written representations when we have doubts regarding the integrity of the management. So firstly, secondly, thirdly, and then finally. Right. And any organization or any company for that matter, when you are doing an audit, and when by performing the audit, you come to know that a fraud has taken place in the company, what you should do, puri dunya ko, 10-12 बार बताने का. Oh, you don't know? Jio Limited, such a huge fraud. Oh, you don't know? Yesterday only it came in the news. Big fraud committed over there. 10-12 times. Everybody you should tell them. Whomsoever you meet, first 10-12 people, you should tell them. Fraud, big fraud those people are. You understand? How many times you should tell? 10-12 times. Why to tell everybody 10-12 times that there is a fraud which has taken place in the organization? 10 times because clause 10 of CARO 2016. You understand? Any fraud on the company or any fraud by the company, by its officers or employees, noticed or reported during the year. If yes, the nature and amount involved is to be indicated. And second one, 143.12, duty to report the fraud to CG. If an auditor in the course of performance of his duties as an auditor has reasons to believe that an offense involving fraud, which involves or is expected to involve an amount of 1 crore or above, is being or has been committed against the company by its officers or employees, it shall report the matter to the central government in the manner as may be prescribed. Right, so clause 10 of CARO 2016 and 143.12, which is regarding the duty to report the fraud to CG. And any person who does a fraud, what number do we use for that person? 420. So 420 का 240. You understand? और फिर पूरी दुनिया को 10-12 बार बताने का. Fraud के लिए you always have to remember 10-12 times. Why 10-12 times? Because clause 10 of CARO and 143.12, duty to report the fraud to CG. Does everybody understand that? Okay. Now, so now say, let me prepare a summary of SA 240. The auditor's responsibilities relating to fraud. So 1 in 240, I studied the two types of fraud. Fraudulent financial reporting and misappropriation of assets. And then clause 10 of CARO 2016 and 143.12, duty to report the fraud to CG. Then we saw FRF is equal to IPO, and then MOC is equal to JV. Right, then after that in SA 240 we discussed the risk assessment procedures and then the responses. Risk assessment procedures IIA FRF. है ना? Inquiries of management, inquiries of TCWG, analytical fraud risk factors. You can fill the chart on your own. Right, by performing these risk assessment procedures, you assess the fraud risk and then you respond. What is your response? More of an attitude of professional skepticism, more experienced staff, more evaluation of accounting principles and practices, and more sensitivity to the possibility of MOC, management override of controls. Right, so in a chart, if I have to put 240, this is the chart. Done? Right, so you've written that firstly, secondly, thirdly, and finally. Done? Right. Okay. Right, so let's come to the question bank of 240 now. Right. The managing director of the company, are you all there? Hannah, has committed a teaming and leading fraud. The managing director, you know, the topmost management, higher level management has committed a fraud. The amount involved has, however, been subsequently after the year end deposited in the company. He said, sorry, I had taken the money, please take it back. Okay, so fraud committed by managing director. The managing director has committed a teaming and leading fraud. The fact that the amount has been subsequently deposited after the year end is not important, because the auditor is required to perform his responsibilities as per SA 240. And now you read the responsibilities given over there. And now everybody in your own books read the responsibilities. Word by word, keeping a pencil, pen in your hand. Yes, no dehydrated, inactive students in the class. Yes, did you find firstly, secondly, thirdly, finally? And 10 12. 143, first of all, secondly, thirdly, finally. Finally, in view of the fact that the fraud has been committed at the highest level of management, it affects the reliability of evidence previously obtained, since there is a genuine doubt about the representations of the management. And further, as per 143.12 and clause 10 of CARO 2016. Okay, right. Then question number 2. You notice a misstatement resulting from fraud or suspected fraud during the audit and conclude that it is not possible to continue the performance of the audit. So same points you have to repeat. 1, 2, 3, 4 and 10, 12. 1, 2, 3, 4 matlab kya? Firstly, secondly, thirdly, finally. And then after that, 10, 12. Right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 10, 12. Right? Next one. Explain briefly the duties and responsibilities of an auditor in case of a material misstatement resulting from management fraud. Or Cloud Limited appointed an auditor for 15-16. While going through the audit, the auditor observed that management has entered into transactions which are irregular in nature and management has personally benefited from such transactions. Explain briefly the duties and responsibilities of an auditor in case of a material misstatement resulting from management fraud. So again, you can write down 1, 2, 3, 4 over there. Plus you need to write that detection of frauds and errors is not the primary objective of the audit. Fraud is more difficult to detect than an error. Management fraud is more difficult to detect than an employee fraud. And misstatements in the financial statements can arise from fraud or error. Did you find? The term fraud involves an intentional act. As per SA 240, this one, the primary responsibility for the prevention and detection of fraud rests with TCWG and management. The auditor conducting an audit is responsible for obtaining a reasonable assurance that the financial statements taken as a whole are free from material misstatement, whether due to fraud or error. Owing to the inherent limitations of an audit, there is an unavoidable risk that some material misstatements of the financial statements may not be detected, even though if the audit has been planned and performed in accordance with the standards. As described in 200, the potential effect of inherent limitations are particularly significant in case of misstatement resulting from fraud. This one, the risk of not detecting a material misstatement resulting from fraud is higher than the risk of not detecting one resulting from error. Fraud is more difficult to detect than an error. Why it says fraud involves forgery and sophisticated, carefully organized schemes. Then come 4-5 lines niche. Then it's written, furthermore, the risk of the auditor of not detecting a material misstatement resulting from management fraud, mila kya? Is greater than for employee fraud. Because management is frequently in a position to directly or indirectly manipulate the operating records, accounting records, present fraudulent information, override controls. Then, while obtaining reasonable assurance, the auditor is responsible for maintaining an attitude of professional skepticism. And nice sentence, considering the potential for management override of controls and recognizing the fact that audit procedures that are effective for detecting an error may not be effective in detecting a fraud. Direct merit ही आ जाएगा ऐसे points लिखोगे तो. See, I'm telling you, one sentence only, so much of dumb in it. The auditor is, अभी क्लास लगाया तो पढ़ ही रहे हो ना, अभी क्यों सोच रहे इतना क्यों पढ़ना है, अभी पढ़ ही लिया ना. हाँ, लिखना, that too you have to. Right, the audit इतना नहीं, जो at least main मैंने जो highlight किया है, इतना भी लिखा तो ठीक है. They are what suggested के हिसाब से लिखने लगे तो फिर 12 घंटे audit का paper ही लिखते रहोगे. Okay, right. When obtaining reasonable assurance, the auditor is responsible for maintaining professional skepticism, considering the potential for management override of control. Professional skepticism, considering the risk of MOC and recognizing the fact that procedures that are effective for detecting and for error may not be effective in detecting a fraud. And then 10-12. Then 12-10. Yeah? We call it 10-12. Clause 10 and 143-12.
Question number 2. Can we write in the end that if he decides to withdraw from the engagement, then he has to file ADT3?
No. Keep the question specific to fraud. Don't go to ADT3. Chalo. Question number 4. In the course of audit of A Limited, you suspect that the management is indulged in FFR. State the possible sources of FFR. So here you have to give the examples of FFR. मैंने आपको accounting की list बना के दी थी ना. Types of fraud का point यहाँ पे लिखना है. But question number 5 क्या था? Risk factors for MOA. So that's Syntex, water tank and the diamonds. And risk factors you have to write. There you don't have to write examples of MOA. You have to write the risk factors for MOA. Next one, read the question. Asked in November 13 and then they again asked to put it in November 16 RTP because that 1 crore ka limit has come now na, for fraud ka reporting to CG. Intelligent Limited entered into an agreement with Mr. Intellectual on 15th of March near the year end, na, whereby it agreed to pay him 2 lakh per month as retainership fee for consultation in IT department. However, no amount was actually paid and 24 lakh is provided. Bas. Provided. Matlab provision. Matlab journal entry. Matlab MOC. Matlab 240. So as per SA 240, read the first line in the answer. Fraud can be committed by management overriding control using such techniques as recording fictitious journal entry, particularly close to the end of the accounting period to manipulate operating results or to achieve other objectives. And now go over to fraudulent financial reporting, types of fraud. And fraudulent, yeah, see over here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Fourth point, see over there. Page number क्या है? 1.26. FFR का point number 4. Recording fictitious journal entry, particularly close to the end of an accounting period to manipulate operating results or to achieve other objectives. Okay. Right. Then what is the remaining part of the question? 24 lakh was provided in the statement of profit and loss. Management of the company uttered that need-based consultation was obtained throughout the year. However, on investigation, no documentary evidence of receipt of such service was found. As an auditor of Innocently Intelligent Limited, yes, what would be your approach? Right, so what would be your approach as per SA 240, then in the given case? Then accordingly, the auditor would adopt the approach which will based on the result of misstatement on the basis of this fictitious journal entry. That is, if as a result of a misstatement resulting from fraud or suspected fraud, the auditor encounters exceptional circumstances that bring into question the auditor's ability to continue performing the audit. Today morning also we had said, And a consequence of an inability to obtain evidence due to non-cooperation from the management. 700 के question bank में देखा था. The auditor shall determine the professional and legal responsibilities applicable in the circumstances, including whether there is a requirement for the auditor to report to the regulatory authorities or withdraw from the engagement if withdrawal is legally permitted. In addition, 143.12. But now how much is the amount of fraud? 24 lakh, no? So less than 1 crore. So in that, 143.12 के 2 parts are, no? If it is less than 1 crore, then you only need to report it to the audit committee. And it is to be disclosed in the board's report. And if it is 1 crore or above, then audit committee, and further you have to also send a report to the CG. That we'll see in company audit. And what all do you need to disclose to the audit committee? The nature of the fraud, the approximate amount involved, and the parties involved in the fraud. Right, so that is what they say. Within 2 days of his knowledge of the fraud, follow the prescribed procedures for reporting on nature of fraud, approximate amount involved, and parties involved. Because it's 24 lakh, less than 1 crore. Right. Next one, question number 7. In the course of audit of K Limited, its auditor Mr. N observed that there was special audit conducted at the instance of the management on a possible suspicion of a fraud and requested for a copy of the report to enable him to report on the fraud aspects. And if the special audit conducted, report asked for by the auditor but not provided. Despite many reminders, it was not provided. In the absence of the special report, N insisted that at least a written representation be provided. For this request also, the management remained silent. Please guide Mr. N. Right, so again, whatever points, when a content के लिए हमने क्या किया? 2 charts we've prepared ना. One, this audit responsibility, 1, 2, 3, 4. And second, this detection of frauds and errors. And then towards the end, you can write 10, 12. Right, so primary responsibilities of the management to obtain reasonable assurance. Then fraud is more difficult to detect than error. Then reliability of written representations, also reevaluate the integrity, reliability of written representations. Then auditor shall disclaim an opinion if he concludes that there is sufficient doubt about the integrity of the management. And then after that, clause 10 of CARO 2016. Right, clause 10 of CARO 2016. Right, next after that, question number 8. As an auditor of a public limited company for 2013, you discovered an error in the valuation of inventory, which has a material effect on the financial statements. Comment with reference to essay. Now, actually, here it's clearly written error in valuation of inventory. But generally it says inventory valuation error, matlab it has to be a fraud. Right, and that is why, because see, nowhere in the question it is given ki with reference to SA 240. But answer mein what are they expecting? It's SA 240 requires that if circumstances indicate the possible existence of fraud or error, the auditor should consider the potential effect of the fraud on financial information. If it has a material effect, he should perform modified or additional procedures. Then requires that auditor identifies a misstatement, evaluate whether it is indicative of fraud. Then implications of the misstatement for the other aspects of audit, mainly the reliability of written representation, recognizing that an instance of fraud is unlikely to be an isolated occurrence. Then what does it say? As per SA 450. What is 450? Evaluation of misstatements identified. Requires that in such circumstances, the auditor should consider requesting the management to adjust the financial information, yani ke correction of the misstatements identified. If the management refuses to adjust the financial information and the results of the extended procedures do not enable the auditor to conclude that the aggregate of uncorrected misstatements is not material, he will express a qualified or an adverse opinion. In the instant case, the auditor has detected material errors regarding affecting the financial statements. He shall communicate to the management and consider the implications on the true and fair view. So you can write down our 1, 2, 3, 4. No? 1, 2, 3, 4. You remember firstly whether the financial statements are materially misstated due to fraud. Also revise the audit risk assessment. Second, check the implications of fraud on the financial statements and the audit report. Communicate to management TCWG and also the reliability of written representation. Question number 9, we've already seen inquiries of management. And last one. while conducting statutory audit of ABC Limited, you came across certain IOUs amounting to 2 crore as against a cash balance of 2.1 crore shown in the books. You also observe that despite similar high balances, small amounts of 50,000 are withdrawn from the bank to meet day-to-day expenses. So again, 2 crore shown as against actual 2.1 crore in the books. And in spite of 2 crore of balance, every day withdrawing 50,000 from the bank to meet day-to-day expenses. Right, so as per SA 240, when the auditor comes across such circumstances indicating the possible misstatement resulting from fraud, he needs to consider the impact of fraud on financial statements and audit report. है ना, तो अपना secondly वाला point. Firstly, secondly, thirdly, finally. So this is secondly point. In this case, the circumstances indicate a possible misstatement and the auditor must investigate further. And the guidance note on cash and bank balances says that auditor should carry out a surprise verification. And if cash is not in agreement with the book, he should ask explanation, and not satisfactory, then put it in his audit report. Right, so again, as you look at the question bank, 10 questions from this essay so far. So that's why we've marked the entire standard as an ATF. Right, so that completes a very huge standard, that is SA 240. Right, so now coming to the next standard, which is SQC 1, Standard on Quality Control 1. Yes, SQC 1, that is Standard on Quality Control 1. Yes, SQC. Right, we said, no, okay, what are the other standards other than SQC? SA, SRE, SAE, and then SRS. Standards on auditing, standards on review engagements. Then after that, the standards on assurance engagement. So other assurance other than audit and review. And then you have the standards on the related services. Okay, right. Now the client place where we are going for an audit, client ke yahan pe, at Geo Limited, what we check for is the design, implementation and maintenance of an internal control system. Client ke yahan pe, where we go for an audit, what do we check for? Design, implementation and maintenance of internal control system. And what are the 5 components of the internal control system? CRISM. Similarly, just as at the client place, there has to be an internal control system. In the CA firm, at Dynamic and Company, there has to be design, implementation and maintenance of a quality control system. There has to be design, implementation and maintenance of a quality control system in the CA firm. So what's the title of SQC1? Quality Control for Firms. So this standard is applicable to the entire firm that perform audits and reviews of historical financial information and other assurance and related services engagement. What is the title of the standard? Quality Control for Firms. And this standard is applicable to the entire CA firm that perform audits and reviews of historical financial information and other assurance and related services engagement. So rather you put the name of all the other S standards and the name of SQC1 is ready. Quality Control for Firms. Okay, so what are the elements of the internal control system at the client place? CRISM. What are the elements of the quality control system in the CA firm? LEHAM. LEAHEM. LEHAM. Leadership responsibilities, ethical requirements including independence, acceptance and continuance of the client, human resources, engagement performance and monitoring. Leadership responsibilities. Rather when we go to each one of them, we'll write down. Leadership responsibilities. Then ethical requirements including independence. IOC CPT, you remember? Ethical requirements including independence. Then acceptance and continuance of client relationship. Acceptance and continuance of client relationship. Then human resources. Human resources. Then engagement, performance. And the last one is monitoring. So 6 elements of the quality control system in the CA firm. 6 elements of the quality control system in the CA firm. Leadership responsibilities for quality in the firm, ethical requirements including independence, then acceptance and continuance of client, human resources, engagement, performance, and monitoring. In CRISM also there was M, na? Monitoring. So what would this M stand for? Monitoring would stand for what? What would that mean? Quality audit. You understand कि all these policies and procedures of the firm, system मतलब क्या? Policies and procedures, no? So these are the areas for which policies and procedures should be there in the firm. And whether these policies and procedures are being followed or not, that is what you check in the monitoring. So that's like type of operating effectiveness of the quality control system in the CA firm. OE, no? Operating effectiveness. You're checking for the operating effectiveness of the controls, the quality control system in the CA firm. कि ये इतना सारा जो policy procedure बताया है, is this really working effectively? So what you do, pick up 1 or 2 completed assignments during the year and check whether सारा firm का policy procedure follow हुआ है क्या नहीं. Right, so that's monitoring. Right, so now we are left with only 5 elements of quality control. Once we discuss these 5 points, the standard is over. SQC1 matlab LEHAM. Yes, SQC1 means LEHAM. Leadership responsibilities, ethical requirements including independence, acceptance, continuance, human resources, engagement, performance, and monitoring. Does everybody understand? First one, leadership responsibilities for quality within the firm. Leadership responsibilities for quality within the firm. And leadership responsibilities for quality within the firm. Right. So who has to comply with SQC1? The CA firm. So the CA firm, say example PwC, EY, that firm has to comply. So obviously the firm has to comply. Then you have to put the responsibility on somebody's shoulder. It is your responsibility to ensure that the firm complies with the requirement. Engagement partner nahi. Engagement partner will be responsible for a particular audit. And here you are talking about the entire firm. You understand? Your firm has a billing of 200 crore during the year. So that entire firm is complying with the quality control policies or procedures. That is what we need to put the responsibility. So one, it says you need to identify the leader for the purpose of SQC1. So whom you need to make the leader? The CEO. The managing partner, the senior most partner of the firm should be made the senior most partner, they should be made the leader for the purpose of SQC1. Right? It says the responsibility should be given to experienced and able persons in the firm. Tom, Dick and Harry को नहीं देने का responsibility. Experienced and able persons in the firm. Newly qualified CA or just article newly joined in. You're telling him SQC1 your responsibility. You can't do that. It says it has to be given to experienced and able persons in the firm. Now, the leader has been identified. Say whosoever is the CEO of PwC India, he has been made the leader for the purpose of SQC1. Or they have separately designated an SQC partner. कि आपका काम ही यही है कि सिर्फ quality check दे रखने का. To ensure quality control. Now, this leader either he can design himself or he will get designed. policies and procedures as required by SQC1. So now the responsibility has been put on his able shoulders, no? So now he should open the text of SQC1. He should open the implementation guide to SQC1, big implementation guide. एक तो standard है और दूसरा उसका implementation guide है ना? And accordingly he should design the policies and procedures of the firm. Okay, ethical requirements, all जो बाकी ली हम के points है ना, he should design the policies and procedures. Then communicate to all the firm personnel. तो अभी फर्म का पॉलिसी प्रोसीजर सेट हो गया, अब क्या करने का? ट्रेनिंग प्रोग्राम रखने का, है ना? सेमिनार, फॉर्मल इनफॉर्मल डायलॉग. यू नीड टू कम्युनिकेट दीज पॉलिसीज एंड प्रोसीजर्स ऑफ द फर्म. हु यू, द लीडर, has to communicate it to all the firm personnel. You understand? So, like, if you join a big four, first month or whenever earliest possible, they give you an induction training. So in this induction training, they make you familiar to what are the policies and procedures of the firm. Or if you go on the website of that CA firm, the code of conduct has been given over there. So why all that is put? Because it's the requirement of SQC1. Right? So that is leadership responsibilities. Right? So you identify the leader. It should be an experienced, stable person. He should design or get designed. He can have 10 people working under him. Policies and procedures, and then communicate. So what he'll do if he's the SQC partner of PwC India, and now say PwC, it has 14 offices across India. So what he'll do, each of the office he'll go and he'll give them two days ka training program. And he'll conduct a 2-day program at each of the offices, communicating the policies and procedures. So that is first one, leadership responsibility. Second one is what? Ethical requirements. So again, everywhere, what am I going to say? The firm should have policies and procedures in order to ensure that the firm and its personnel comply with the ethical requirements, including independence. Ethical requirements, those being IOC CPT. Integrity, objectivity, professional competence and due care, confidentiality, professional behavior and technical standards. We did it in 200, no? You understand? So ethical requirements. So again, any employee has been caught breaching confidentiality. You understand, no? You were sitting at the client place, these articles, first year article, Masoom. You understand? They are sitting at the client place, okay? Just abhi CPT hua hai, IPCC group 1 done. Very, not having the innocent types. And then the partner is around there and then he hears this article talking on the phone and he is telling his friend, अरे मैं तो जिस client का audit कर रहा हूँ ना, उनका profit तो ज़्यादा नहीं दिख रहा है, 210 crore ही दिख रहा है. Knowingly or unknowingly, he is breaching confidentiality. He's telling the profit figure of the client to the friend, and that friend will tell some uncle or some other person, and that might be a problem again. Right? So again, confidentiality. Right? Then professional behavior, technical standards. And then independence. We know now, not only in appearance, but also independence of mind. And it says very important, for independence, there should be policies and procedures in the firm to identify whether there are any threats to independence. Independence is equal to threat. Like MOC is equal to JV, FRF is equal to IPO. Similarly, independence is equal to threat. Are there any threat to independence? All the disqualifications under 141(3) of the Companies Act 2013 are examples of threat to the independence of the auditor. It says you cannot hold security interest. Why? It's a threat to independence. You cannot be indebted. You cannot give a guarantee. You cannot have a business relationship. Your relative cannot be a director or employed as a director or a key managerial personnel. Why? You cannot provide other services. 144, auditor not to render certain services. You know now? You understand? Why? They have been identified as threat to independence. And you are told that you cannot accept any hospitality, any gifts from the client. You understand? No? Generally, any gifts or so from the client you don't accept. Why? It's a threat to independence. Companies Act 1956, there was a familiarity threat. I told you, na, Chaturvedi doing the audit for 35 years. So there was a familiarity threat over there to independence. So that is why now after 10 years you have to change the firm. So there should be policies and procedures in the firm to identify whether there are any threats to independence. So again, post-qualification, you join a Big Four and you are told that from Monday you have to go for the audit of Vodafone. You are told on Friday, that Monday you have to go for the audit of Vodafone. And then your manager or partner under whom you are working, you're just a member of the engagement team. You're not even signing. But then you are asked, Vodafone ka koi shares hai aapke paas? Or Vodafone, let me change. I'm not sure whether it is listed. So say, let me check example of Airtel or so. You understand? So you're asked, do you hold any shares of Airtel? So you say, yes, I have 150 shares of Airtel. So what they tell you, Monday morning, the moment the stock market opens, sell those shares and then come to office. Clear cut you are told. You understand? Then they ask you, is any of your relative or person whom you know working in Airtel? So he says, yes, my uncle is only the CFO of that company. Well, you cannot come for this assignment. You sit in office. We'll put you on some other audit. It's identified as a threat to independence. Right? So then what are the steps taken to reduce or eliminate those threats? And if you cannot reduce or eliminate those threats, if you cannot reduce or eliminate those threats, then in that case you may also have to withdraw from the engagement, because now the title of the report is Independent Auditor's Report. So by any chance, in any way, if you are not independent, you will have to withdraw. And in addition to this, an annual declaration of independence is to be taken from all the firm personnel. From all employees of the firm, they send an independence form on the outlook of the firm. और सब एम्प्लॉयज को बोलते हैं कि ये जो इंडिपेंडेंस का फॉर्म आया इसका प्रिंट निकालो, कंटेंट्स भरो एंड साइन करके सबमिट इट टू द HR ऑफ द कंपनी. So annual declaration of independence. Right? So that's the second one. E. LE. Lehem. So LE. Now coming to the A. What is A? Acceptance and continuance of the client relationship. Acceptance and continuance of the client relationship. Acceptance will be for a new client and continuance will be for an existing client. You understand? Yesterday I had told you, we had done risk assessment procedures of SA 315. IAOR. R was for related activities. There I had told you, any client approaches your firm, will you do the audit for us? It's not like painting the home. I told you yesterday. You have to do your homework before you accept a new client or before you continue with an existing client. So rather this I can also call it as prospective client due diligence. I told you, you need to do a background check if you remember. And a prospective client due diligence. You need to do your homework before you accept a particular client assignment. Like, before you join any class also, you do your due diligence. Doing your homework before you take a decision. Right, so first thing, what does the audit management expect the first quality in the auditor? वो अभी ethical requirement में what is the first quality? Integrity. So auditor says very good. First thing which I will also check when I have to accept your audit is the management integrity. And for that I'll do the KOC. KOC ka 6 points. External, internal, past, future, accounting, internal control system, history of the company, background of the promoters, the AFRF, the accounting policies, the history of frauds and errors, all. Management integrity, so KOC. Then after that, do you have the CCTR? What is CCTR? Do you have the competence? Do you have the capability? Do you have the time And do you have the resources to perform the engagement? Competence. Yes, your client, rather the client which has approached you, they have prepared their financial statements as per US GAAP. And they are telling you, see, these US GAAP financial statements, we want them to be audited by you. You don't know the U of US GAAP, where you are accepting the audit. Do you have the competence? You understand? Okay, you know the U of US GAAP. Now, to complete that assignment, you require say 7 CAs in your firm and 15 days full-time working on that assignment. But right now, you don't have that much of time and you don't have that much of resources. Yani ki you don't have the capability to perform the engagement. You don't have the time, you don't have the resources. So you need to check the competence, the capability, the time and the resources. And finally, whether you can comply with the ethical requirements including independence. Because you say, no, I am not independent of that entity. Very good, no accepting the assignment. You understand now? So you say you're not competent, no accepting the assignment. Right, so whether you can comply with the ethical requirements. So what is that? EA, acceptance and continuance of the client relationship. Right, then after A, what is the next one we have over there? H, which is regarding the human resources. One of the biggest expenditure for the CA firms is the salary and a payroll expenditure. So one, it says there should be a proper recruitment process to select individuals of integrity. Like, Big Four if you want to join. Nowadays, once you submit your CV, you have to write some online test or some written test. Abhi written test band ho gaya, online test. Online test you write, then from that if you are shortlisted, then you are called for a technical round of interview. Like if you want to join the direct tax department, so then direct tax ka some, employee will take your interview. One round of interview. They are not very happy or they want to check you more. After 1 week, they'll call you for another round of interview. Right, so that one more round of interview will take place. Then before these, also the HR interview takes place. And then after that, finally the partner level interview. Right, so what is that? Recruitment process to select individual of integrity. Then after all these rounds of interviews, you are selected also. Then after that also for first 6 months, they keep you on probation. And then after 6 months, you are made permanent. So when I was doing my articleship, and that time also new CAs used to join Deloitte. So I thought कि ये एक formality है. That's what my mindset, कि 6 months के बाद permanent होते ही होंगे. That was my mindset. But I have actually seen one case, कि one newly qualified CA joined, and then after, when 6 months were about to get over, they received a mail in their mailbox. Your performance has been below expectations and that is why you're not being made permanent and you're requested to leave the services of the firm. So, you can't take it for granted. And then after that, you join in at the entry level, say as an assistant manager or so. And then annually, your performance evaluation is done. Just like in schools, you used to get grades, A, B, C, D, A plus or so. Here in these forms also they have the grading system. Like, they could have a grading system like BE, matlab below expectations. ME, matlab meeting expectations. EE, matlab exceeding expectations. And SEE, that is substantially exceeding expectations. If you get an SEE, then 20% hike. Salary increase. EE, then say 15%. ME, no hike. And below, you are put on 6 months observation. If you improve your performance, otherwise after 6 months, you'll have to go. You understand? So performance evaluation is done. Then continuously taking care of their training, their competence. New accounting standard has come, new audit report ka format has come, new tax audit ka report, GST has come. So training to be given to the firm employees continuously. Regarding the developments in the profession and also taking care of their career development needs. Like, they'll send you for an IFRS course. They'll put you for some Harvard ka online course. Right? They sometimes also, bear the cost of you doing a CPA. But right now you have to pay. Once you clear, they will reimburse. And once they reimburse, then 1 year bond with the company, with the firm. You cannot leave. So that's, they are taking care of your career development needs. Right? So human resources. You understand? Pehle recruitment process. फिर performance evaluation. You understand na grading system. Increment, bonus, promotion, transfer, decided based on that. Then training, for to update the competence of the employees, and then also taking care of their career development needs. So L was for leadership responsibilities, E for ethical requirements, A for acceptance, continuance of client, H for human resources, and engagement performance. We'll just write down the headings which we have to study under that. Right? Engagement performance. Because बाकी सब तो little 1 point. But finally, the quality of services of your firm will be depicted in the way in which you perform the engagement. Finally, how will anybody come to know okay, how good is your firm in doing their work? By the way you perform the audits and the reviews. So it says in every engagement there should be proper DSR. What is DSR? Direction, supervision and review. Direction towards the start of the engagement, supervision during the engagement, and review towards the end of the engagement. Then it says apart from the partner review, there should be an engagement quality control review, EQCR, which also we'll study separately. Then it says for difficult contentious matter, there should be policies and procedures in the firm to take appropriate consultation, which means nothing but using the work of an expert. And a consultation for difficult contentious matters. Then it says whatever work you have performed in the engagement, there should be proper documentation of the same. So engagement documentation. And the last one, so many people working together. So there are bound to be differences of opinion between the members of engagement team or with the experts or so. So how to resolve the differences of opinion, or what if there are differences of opinion? That is the last point under engagement performance. So we have DSR, then EQCR, then consultation, engagement documentation, and then the differences of opinion. Are you getting? DSR, then EQCR, then consultation, then engagement documentation, then differences of opinion. Now this DSR is again a frequent term which we use in the audits now, year onwards in the standard. Like, sufficient appropriate audit evidence. So we keep on using it at other places, AFRF and so. So similarly this DSR, direction, supervision and review. Right? So we continue on Monday.